Test, no.
You're good. You might be a little loud.
My mask was still on, that's why. I mean, maybe.
We'll see.
Are you chilly? No. No? I'm perfect with the jacket on. You're good? All right, excellent. Hey there. It's great to see you. Oh. Come on in. Whew. Last week I did it. Michelle said I didn't need to. You want me to again? I didn't last weekend. I asked her about it, so definitely turned me down then more. Yeah? To be okay. Hold on. Hopefully this one's okay. Woo.
Shabbat shalom to those who are joining us on the screen.
Shabbat shalom, friends. Welcome. Shabbat shalom, friends in the room.
Yes, Shabbat shalom to those who braved the cold and the sleet to be here.
That's right. I told my family that in order to watch a family movie later, we need to think of something with ice in it. So we're probably going to go with Ice Age, possibly. It's good.
You know, we're in the middle of Frozen, come to think of it.
That totally works. All right. So Shabbat shalom again. We're going to begin on page 24. Shalom Aleichem. We invite in those ministering angels, that presence that brings us close to peace. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Bochem LeShalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Baruchuni, Baruchuni, L'Shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem LeShalom, join us. Seitchem LeShalom, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi.
'Cause 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 ' Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I was thinking earlier about a song that my son had recently been learning and singing with me. Song, if you've heard it, it's kind of a classic Israeli song from the beginning, actually, pre-state period, Zum Gali Gali. And one of the things about Zum Gali Gali, right, to a 3-year-old, it's a really exciting song, that I've been thinking a little bit about is that verse, not the Zum Gali Gali part, but the part that says, Hechalutz leman avodah, avodah leman hechalutz, which in English means, work is for the pioneer is made for work. And I've been thinking about the fact that that kind of ethic, right, which is really endemic of the kind of growth of early Israel, but is also, I would say, endemic of just Western culture in general, is the idea that our life is defined by the work that we do. Work is for us and we are for work. And the truth is, work is important. For 6 days, we are taught affirmatively in the Torah that we should work. But on the 7th day, we are made to rest. Work is not for us. We are not for work. And pausing once every 7 days means that we are not defined by the work that we do. Interestingly, Zum Gali Gali is a lesson for 6 days. But tonight is the antithesis of that. Tonight is the ability to be something other than the things you accomplish. And so your goal over this Shabbat period is to figure out what that is. And if you, like me, are defined wholly by what you do rather than who you are, this is a way out. And so we light our candles tonight as the beginning of that Shabbat period where we let go of defining ourselves by what we do. We're on page 2 and 3, and I want to call Alan Fisher up to light our candles tonight.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat. Thank you.
I'm going to invite us to turn forward in our prayer book. We're on page 20 as we join together in the singing of Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likrat kalaya yalla B'nei Shabbat nekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kalaya yalla B'nei Shabbat nekabela Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad Ishmi'anu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shemo l'tiferet v'l'techila Lecha Dodi k'rakalaya B'nei Shabbat nekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala B'nei Shabbat לקבלה לקראת שבת לכוון אליך כי מקור הברכה מראש סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי קראת קלה יאללה אני שבת אני קבלה יאי לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה אני שבת אני קבלה. verse 5 התעוררי כי בורך קומי אורי שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך אני גלה לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה אני שבת אני קבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה אני שבת אני קבלה.
We rise together, verse 9.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובעצולה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה אני שבת אני קבלה יאי לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה אני שבת אני קבלה. one more time we're gonna go a little faster. let's dance לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה אני שבת אני קבלה יאי לך דודי לקראת קלה יאללה פני שבת אני קבלה.
We remain standing, page 28.
Adonai המבורך ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
We're seated together. Top of page 31. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Aravim.
Amen.
Page 32.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. הרי כן אדוני אלוהינו, משכבנו וקומנו, נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו באורך ימינו, באורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה, ואהבתך לתסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Page 41. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles in earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers' home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Page 40.
Ya la 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 ya la la ya la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 mi chamoch bailim Adonai. Top of page 40 together. Mi chamoch bailim Adonai, mi chamoch nedar b'kodesh. נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ובניך, חוקי הים לפני משה ומרים. זה לי אנו ואמרו, זה לי אנו ואמרו. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ונאמר, כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגרו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Hashkivenu, page 42.
לשלום, 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 והעמידנו שוב לחיים, לחיים, לשלום, 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 לשלום. נה 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 נה
In a moment, we're going to turn to page 46. And after beginning with the words of Adonai Sifatai Tiftach, we'll move into our silent Amidah through page 62. You can pray either the traditional words on the page or the words in your heart as together we rise.
Adonai Sifatai Tiftach ופי יגיד תהילתך.
Adonai Sifatai Tiftach ופי יגיד תהילתך.
lift up words of intention for bringing wholeness into the world. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. This is also the first Shabbat in February, and throughout the month we hope to be reminding each other through programs and also just by reading online and being open to this being Jewish Disabilities Awareness, Acceptance, and Inclusion Month, which means setting an intention for beginning with a really open heart and open hands and asking always, how can I serve? What can I do to bring you into a place of feeling that you belong? So here we are, Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Turn our faces to the screen. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yararai, Yahidai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yararai, Yahidai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yararai, Yararai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yararai, Yararai. I must build this world from love. Yararai, Yararai. And you must build this world from love. Yararai, Yararai. And if we build this world from love, Yararai, Yararai, then God will build this world from love. Yararai, Yararai. One more time. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yararai, Olam Chesed Yibaneh. One more time.
Our hearts have been open for prayer this evening. And as usual, as we always do, as we gather together in prayer, we leave a little bit more space for those in need of healing. If you join me on page 253, think of those folks that you are thinking of, and as I look around the room in a few moments, I'll ask you to add those names. Mishaberak avotenu v'imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, u'yivarech et hacholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. And if you'd like to add names, please do so. Yisheberach avotenu mekor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha le'avotenu. those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. So one of the things that's rare in the Torah is that the Torah very rarely gives rationale for actions that God tells us to take. Often we are told, and the kind of fancy word for it is apodictically, God says, just do this, and then we follow. Now, when God eventually does say the rationale behind any given action, it means that lights should kind of point to that rationale. Light bulbs should go off in your head, and you should say to yourself, well, this must be important. And in this week's Torah portion, we have one of those rationales. Because God says, look, build me a home in the desert. I'm going to come visit you. I want it to look exactly the way that I'm about to tell you. And then for basically half of the book of Exodus, and we begin this week, but it's 4 portions long, God basically says to the people, here's what I want the walls to look like. Here's what I want your lamps to look like. Here's what I want your table to look like. And then God not only says it once, God reiterates it, and Moses even reiterates it after that. But when God first tells the people to build, in Hebrew, the Mishkan, or the tabernacle, God says, Asuli Mishkan, make for me a Mishkan, v'shachanti b'tocham, so that I may dwell in your midst. Now, on the one hand, this seems self-evident. God's saying to the people, build me a home so I can be with you. And there's no shortage of midrashim, of commentaries, that tell stories of God feeling like God is worried that the people are going to abandon God. God is likened, by the way, to a father-in-law who gives away his daughter, only to ask that when she builds the palace, she builds him an in-law apartment that he can come to and visit. Even 2,000 years ago, our rabbis understood the nuances of what it meant to be a mother or a father-in-law. But it's not self-evident that actually the rationale for building the tabernacle should be that we should feel closer to God. One could imagine a world, and by the way, there's no shortage of students who become bar mitzvah who ask the exact question I'm asking, who come to the conclusion that the reason that you need a central place to gather for prayer isn't because you want God to dwell in your midst, but because you might see your buddies when you're praying next to them. It's that old adage, which you may have heard. I don't really know why they pick these names, but the man says, Garfunkel comes to talk to God, I come to shul to talk to Garfunkel. The communal cohesion, the sense of peoplehood, the understanding that we're all in this together is as significant of a rationale of building the tabernacle as being close to God. And one of the things that I love about Judaism is that despite the fact that every once in a while we get that rationale, Judaism is multivalent. Judaism does provide different pathways for connection. And for some of us, it's going to be religion. And for some of us, it's going to be community. Then again, others of us, it's going to be the rich Jewish culture that we have, the music, perhaps, that's played in the tabernacle. Well, for others, it's going to be the fact that we probably are kind of related to many of the people who show up, this sense of familyhood. Or the fact that in ancient world, you were probably on the battlefield fighting for your national identity next to the people who are around you. Judaism, unlike many other faiths, has always defied definition. It's not simply a religion. Judaism is a religion, and it's a culture, it's an ethnicity, it's a people, it's a nation, and yes, it is a race. Now, I'm sure as soon as I said the word race, you immediately jumped to the events of this week. And I want to talk not necessarily about Whoopi Goldberg, but I want to unpack a little bit about what she said. Look, I don't expect people who are not part of the Jewish community whether born Jewish, converted, or married to someone who is Jewish, to understand the kind of rich nuance that is Jewish identity. That Judaism can't be defined simply through the lens that Western culture defines other traditions and other religions. It's the reason that people just can't wrap their head around, for example, why Israel could exist. Because religion and nation don't seem to go together, without realizing that for 2,000 years, Judaism has understood itself to be a national identity. And so when Whoopi Goldberg stood up and she said, look, Judaism isn't a race. The Holocaust wasn't about race. It was about the way we treat one another. That was an honest mistake. It's a mistake, by the way, that she immediately learned from. Her apology was a particularly good one. And whether or not she deserved to be suspended for 2 weeks, she definitely doesn't deserve to lose her job. Judaism has a history, and it is central to Jewish law that if someone does learn from their mistakes and someone does attempt to grow, that person deserves a pathway back in. But what she raised is the fact that although she couldn't figure it out, I gotta say, most of us can't either. And within the pages of Jewish publications, things like Tablet Magazine and The Forward, you find internal conversations about what exactly the nature of Judaism is. One central question being, how white are Jews? Is Judaism a race? Now, I don't want to debate that question here because it's a difficult question. And you could easily argue many different ways. I do want to point out, though, that the main argument for why Judaism is a race is that someone else imposed that identity on us, rather than we allowing ourselves to embrace that identity ourselves. But what I do want to say is that I love the fact that I can't wrap my hands around Judaism. And we've tried. There's a very famous book that came out only probably 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, by a scholar whose name is Leora Batinsky. She's, I think, out of UPenn. And the book is How Judaism Became a Religion. Because the truth is, for most of Jewish history, Judaism didn't consider itself a religion qua religion. When we think of religion, we think of any number of things. We think of belief in God. We think of a sense of the afterlife. We think of ritual practices that are going to connect us spiritually. And Judaism has all of those things. But when you call Judaism a religion, what you simply get is only a subset of what Judaism actually is. There are atheist Jews. There are Jews who get their identity because they eat bagels and watch Fiddler on the Roof and feel as connected to Judaism as those who go to shul every single week. Judaism is multivalent, and it is multifaceted, and that's what makes it beautiful. And it was only once we entered into the modern era, once emancipation happened in the late 1700s and early 1800s, and suddenly Jews didn't walk out of the ghetto, they ran out of the ghetto, and they were able to interact with their Christian neighbors, that they started to be known and to realize and to define themselves in the way that the rest of the culture did. If I could vote like my neighbors, and I could pay taxes like my neighbors, and I was a citizen like my neighbors, then maybe I should do religion like my neighbors. And just as Christianity is defined almost wholly in that religious realm by what you believe, Judaism became a religion just like theirs because we wanted to be just like our neighbors. It's only in the real kind of past 50 years that Jews have started to move away from that. And to say that authentic Jewish practice means that what you are actually doing is you are figuring out your entry point in the matrix of Jewish identity. And for some of us, it's going to be the cultural markers of Judaism. It's going to be what we eat, what we listen to. It's going to be what we watch and what we wear. It's going to be the oys that we say when we get up and our knees hurt a little too much. For others, it's going to be that religion. It's going to be coming here. It's going to be singing. It's going to be lighting candles. It's going to be connecting to God. And for others still, it's going to be that sense of community. The idea that we don't go and build that Mishkan because we want to connect to God. It's because it's a giant party when we all show up. It's about being and seeing others in their truest form. And that kind of what I would call almost ethnic identity, the ability to show up and other people just getting you, is your way in. And then there are those who feel deeply connected to the national identity of Judaism. For anyone who said that nationhood is dead and that nationalism was a product of the late 1800s, early 1900s, I gotta say, when I think about Israel, I truly feel like they are my people. I truly feel a part of them. And therefore, in my matrix of Jewish identity, this sense of a national identity matters to me. When I was a kid, I was assigned to talk about where my family came from. And I actually went up to the teacher because I was struggling with the assignment. What she really wanted is for me to just say Poland and me to talk about eating kielbasa and listening to polka. But the truth is, that might be Polish culture, but it wasn't my own. My family wasn't Polish. My family were Jews living in Poland. And I still feel like even though I am fully American, there's a piece of me that has a national identity that supersedes that. I hold two passports, one Jewish and one American. And then, of course, there's the question of race. And that's a hard nut to crack, and the Jewish community hasn't figured it out. There are Jews of color, and then there are Jews whose skin is white. There are people who are Jewish and proudly Jewish who were born Jewish, and people who are Jewish and proudly Jewish who converted to Judaism. Race is a hard thing. But if you define race by being the other by the nature of who you are and wearing that as a badge on yourself, whether it's skin color or not, then I think Judaism very perfectly fits into that. It is a race, even if we have to define ourselves as a race by the bigots who see us that way, rather than the pride that we hold. Now, the reason I bring all of this up is because Whoopi Goldberg kicked off a conversation that makes every single one of us ask the question, who are you? Where is your Jewish connection? Is it religion? Is it culture? Is it race? Is it ethnicity? Is it nationhood? Is it a sense of family? That wherever you go, someone is your distant cousin that you're reuniting with when you find out that you are both Jewish. There's no wrong answer. And the fact that you are here tonight, both in person and virtual, means at least the religion piece says something to you. But even if it doesn't, even if in the matrix you rank a lot of things above that, there is no inauthentic way to be Jewish. As long as you've got a couple pieces of that puzzle, you can proudly say that you are. So allow yourself to have the internal debates about what matters most to you, and the external debates about how the Jewish community should weigh, whether religion should be on top, or whether there should be others that supersede. And when you do, you'll find that you're part of what I think is a 3,000-year-old conversation about Jewish meaning just like that. I have to imagine that when Moses delivered back to the people that rationale that God said, build me a tent that I may dwell among you, a group of people probably looked at him askance and said, that's why we should build that? There's got to be 50 other reasons. And hopefully Moses looked at them and said, every single one is valid as long as you find your way in. Shabbat shalom. I'm going to invite us to rise together as we move to page 282 for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu kamishbechol ta'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
We turn now to page 294, and our thoughts now turn to those who we've loved and who we've lost. As I read a list of names, I'll invite you to rise as you hear the name of your loved one. This Shabbat, we remember the following individuals: Fred Balk, Joseph Berman, William Kroberski, Betty Deutsch, Jeff Edinburgh, Betty Epstein, Albert Feiertag, Freddie Fishbein, Lisa Fleischman, Alice Friedland, Jacob Friedland, Dorothy Friedman, Simon Glassman, Clara Greenberg, Stanley Greenwald, Emma Kolb, Alvin Kosak, Sophie Lorea, Jules Lavner, Florence Lazarus, Mildred Lichtman, Joel Linder, Edith Mandel, Ray Matarazzo, Estelle McKinnon, Loretta Miller, Pinchas Morgenston, Lillian Morris, Mitchell Rubin Perlmeter, Louis Rockowitz, Matt Roth, Paul Russman, Rabbi Jacob Keston Shankman, Ruth Kane Shapiro, Paul Sherman, Anna Schubes, Abraham Weinberg, Yetta K. Wine. And those who are in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning: Ellen Berman, mother of Doug Berman, Francoise Laurent, mother of Anne Laurent, Joan Sutton, and Sue Nussbaum, father of Jody Nussbaum. I'll invite us now all to rise and to add names of those who might not be on this Kaddish list or who are observing a one-year period of mourning for. Again, page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, b'yamad divrach yirateh v'yamlech malchuteh, v'chayachon v'yomachon v'chayed l'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach li'olam olamei almaya, yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudashah baruch hu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, tamiram b'yama v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'ramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Please be seated. So before we close out tonight, and our closing song is going to be actually on the screen, but you can also turn to page 321. Just a few announcements. Tomorrow morning, we actually do not have a bat mitzvah tomorrow morning. The family actually decided to reschedule because of certain COVID things. And so if you can help us make a minyan, we would love to see you tomorrow morning. We want to make sure that we've got our 10, and we hope we can see you there. Services are at 10 a.m. They're going to be right here. 8:30 is our Torah study virtually. You can find the link online. In addition, there's a number of other things going on. The first, I'm going to say, you're doing the chanting, right? Yep. So Cantor's also doing her monthly chanting circle at 9 a.m. As well here. Sunday, I want to plug that Jody Radoran had this great idea last year, and she decided to do it this year as well. Sometimes we just want someone else to make us dinner. And so what we're going to do is show up with some pints of soup that you've made, and we're going to do a soup exchange. So you bring 2 pints, you take 2 pints home of someone else's soup. You bring 4 pints, you take 4 pints home of someone's soup. In containers. So that's going to be here, I think, at 11:15, right? Though check your email for
Yes,
the
something
specific
like that.
time.
11.
And yep, that's also totally fine. Yes. Or maybe you're supposed to bring a quart in general. Just look at your email and you'll find out how to apportion the soup. So that's coming up. And then next week, Thursday night, on the 10th, we're having a really important speaker coming in. There's one of the best books, I think, on Jewish institutional life in the past year was a book called Warm and Welcoming, which is a book about basically how to really walk the walk. We think we all call ourselves warm and welcoming, but we actually do a lot of things wrong. This book is how to do it right, and how to do it right to any number of people, whether we're talking about Jews of color, LGBTQ Jews, young Jews, whatever category we're talking about, there's a chapter for it in the book, and the editors of that book are coming in. They're going to present about the book, teach about some of their findings, what they've learned, and then we're going to break up into smaller groups, whether you're joining us virtually or in person, to get a chance to process and to brainstorm and to talk about how to actually walk the walk and be a warm and welcoming community. I'm almost got 4 groups so far, but I can definitely accommodate more for our Israel giving circles. This is, you show up, you decide kind of how much you want to give, let's say $100, right? There are 10 people in the group. Everybody gives that $100. We now have $1,000 to play with in that group. And then there's a curriculum, 2 parts, so 2 different meetings, where you're going to learn about different nonprofits in Israel, different ways that you might connect to Israel, to try to figure out, why does Israel matter to you? To use real money as a kind of test point to talk about what matters to you about Israel. And then over the course of these 2 meetings, your group will decide where you're going to give that pot of money to. And all the nonprofits are small nonprofits in Israel where the money actually will matter. We've got a list of about 12 to 14 that you're going to kind of be picking from and using very diverse to have a conversation about.
And it's not too late to.
It's not too late, yeah. No, I haven't fully made the groups yet, so there's still some room in some of these groups. In addition to that, just check your email. There's lots and lots of other stuff going on. And we're going to end today, Cantor, with?
We are going to end with these words on page 321. You can also see on the screen, Biyado of Kidruchi. I'm going to put my soul in your hands, God, whatever that may mean to you. My soul will know rest and peace this Shabbat. Biyado of Kidruchi. Ve'et ishan ve'ya'ira ve'im ruchi yegeviati Adonai li ve'lo ira ve'im ruchi yegeviati Adonai ve'lo ira. You choose English or Hebrew.
Biyado of Kidruchi,
My
et ishan ve'ya'ira, ve'im ruchi geviati. Adonai ve'lo ira, ve'im ruchi geviati. Adonai ve'lo ira. Shabbat shalom.
Get
Make
home
sure to introduce yourself to
safely.
someone around you. Shabbat shalom to those who joined us virtually.
Thank you, Ed and Gilad, for